Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Now, today we're going to be having an honest conversation about life after sport. Things like chronic illness, identity, grief, and what resilience actually looks like. I mean, what happens when your body changes and discipline doesn't work the way it used to in your strength? Well, you're having to redefine that. Well, to help us through this today, I am joined by a guest who is herself a former athlete. She's now an educator, an author, a therapist, and international speaker. And she works at the intersection of chronic illness, resilience, and recovery. She talks about things like medical trauma, eating disorders, body image. And through her book, Chronic Illness and Eating Disorders, she shares her own personal story and her insights. On top of that, she also teaches eating disorder psychology at Westchester University. She truly is an inspiration. Welcome to the show, Tamie Gangloff. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. I appreciate that. And thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you because your situation is, it's, I guess there'll be people out there who are going through something similar or the same, but it's not often talked about. I certainly haven't heard it talked about, particularly when we're getting into midlife. I mean, you yourself, as we said at the beginning, were a fantastic athlete. You were like doing triathlon, swimming, you swam the Hudson, all these kinds of things. So sort of hard sports to be in. And then obviously you have some devastating news and you've been through surgery, etc. I don't want to tell the whole story because that you'll be the best one to share that with people. But also what it's like to sort of go through that, being a sort of hardworking, competitive athlete and then kind of have that taken away from you. What the sort of feelings you went through, the emotions, and then how you recovered. And now obviously you're in this fantastic position when you're able to teach all these things and through your personal story and help people move forward and have a positive outcome and better quality of life. So over to you, Tamie. Just share to the audience your story and how you went from being an athlete to being this amazing therapist now.
Thank you. So I will kind of bounce around a little bit, but I think you'll be able to follow me. So I became a therapist probably almost 20 years ago now, but I was not yet an athlete at that time because I didn't think that a kid that grew up with scoliosis could be an athlete. And so it was through my sister, who's just a year older than me, getting into triathlon and me saying, I didn't think people like us could do things like that I then started. And so I did, as you say, got into triathlon, really enjoyed the open water swimming aspect, had my spine fused, and then I started doing obstacle course races. And so I really loved being active. I wouldn't say I wasn't the fastest, but I loved being out there. I loved being around the women in sports. And then as you just mentioned, about 2 years ago, maybe a little more than that, my spine doctor finally said to me, I shouldn't run anymore. And he'd never said no to too many things other than, maybe don't do deadlifts like that. Don't do these certain things. And so for after my spine fusion, I wasn't able to ride a bike anymore because of where I'm fused to. And that was upsetting. And I was like, okay, but I have all these other things. So I'm still an athlete. I still have a sport, and then I really just amped up my swimming and I loved that. And then guess what? My neck started bothering me. Right. And so I couldn't really swim anymore. And so I was slowly kind of losing these things, and really running was one of the things I had left that still made me feel like I was an athlete. And so to get that news, it was really jarring and upsetting. And I came to the conclusion that I'm an athlete without a sport. And I didn't know what to do with that. Who am I if I'm an athlete without a sport? So I still have that spirit. I still go to the gym and do things to take care of my health, but I'm not out there competing. I'm not signing up for races. And so it was really a period of grief. And so when I grieve, I always say, give yourself time to be angry. You can be as mad as you want to be, but you can't stay there very long. And so I did that for a period of time. And then I think it allowed me to shift my focus a little bit more. I was actually towards the end of writing the book when I got that news. And so the last little bit of it ended up in the final thoughts chapter of the book, where it talked about I was taking a walk that day with a group of friends where I had run half marathons and, did all these great things there. And I was like, okay, well, when I walked that morning, I felt at peace knowing that I still can go there to walk, and it could be a reminder of my resilience, even if I couldn't walk there anymore. So it's this ebb and flow of grief. And so, but I think it's allowed me to, open space to do things like this and to educate people more and have a different shift in my purpose. And all while having the understanding of what it's like to be an athlete and lose sport.
Because I think, yeah, that is the difficult thing of when you love doing something like that and you love
Yeah.
the activity to suddenly have that almost, I guess I would think it's like having the rug pulled from under you. And it's like you say, what do you do next? I don't have my sport. What am I going to do? I mean, as well as for me, it would be like the health aspects, the fitness aspects of that as well. What would be the next step, and the concern about what does my future look like?
Absolutely. Because, right, part of it is just what is my health like as we're getting older? How am I going to take care of my health and my body? And then also, part of our mental health is that physical aspect of it. So, I will go to the gym, and I always say like workouts are boring right now. Like I want to get outside and get back to hiking. And I believe I'll be able to do that with the people I have in my life. But you can sign up for hiking quote races too. So for me, there's something about signing up for a race that brings out that feeling like I'm an athlete. Listen, sometimes
Well,
we just want a medal, even though of all the
yeah.
hard work we put in. I like a medal and a race t-shirt every once in a while. But yeah, what else can I have in my life that's movement that brings me joy outside? I mean, I love to be outside. I don't like swimming in the pool, but I will walk in the pool. I did that the other day. But what kind of movement can I find that can bring me joy and bring me
Um,
outside? And that's what I'm working on right now, is finding
Yeah.
that.
When you talk about, I mean, you said yourself you have scoliosis and you have these spinal fusions as well. So I assume, have had quite a significant case of scoliosis. But in terms of, physically, how is that? So people can understand. So obviously, people do have scoliosis. It's not such an unusual condition. But how did that really affect your ability? As we talk about sort of exercise fitness, how did you get round that?
Good question. Yeah, a lot of people have scoliosis. I think the statistic is 1 in 40 people have it, and people have it to different degrees. So I didn't have to have. I had some, if you want to call spine surgery minor. I had some minor spine surgeries, and when I was younger, for herniated discs, but I didn't have the scoliosis surgery, like where my spine was fused until I was in my 40s. And so for me, how I got around it, really part of it was just listening to my body and also checking in with my doctor about it. Can I run? Should I be running? In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have been doing a lot of the things I was doing for the obstacle course racing. Probably wasn't good for me. But I, again, was listening to my body. And although the reminder that my one spine doctor would say is just because you can doesn't mean you should. So checking it out and maybe really questioning yourself. When my back started hurting me again about a year and a half ago, I was like, maybe I shouldn't be throwing those really heavy balls over my shoulder. And so I think getting around it was just that, finding doctors that understood how important it was for me to be active, to be involved in sport, and knowing that part of our goal was to get back to that. My one sports medicine doctor, who's in the book, Dr. Payne, she and I talked about viewing myself almost through the lens of like a para athlete, where I have different limitations, and also that it's okay for my movement to change over time. If she could tell I was struggling with it, it was okay for my movement to change over time, and that's okay.
And it is quite important as well. I mean, we speak about, everyone is talking about mental health, but actually the importance of being able to take part in some form of health, fitness, some sort of activity is really good. And now, did you find at that time that it was significantly affecting your mental health?
Not being able to do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It definitely, listen, I still have some close friends that I met through that journey of being an athlete. There's just something different about, we're not meeting on a Sunday morning to do a training run, or I'm not going to our Tuesday, Thursday night obstacle course classes. It definitely impacted my mental health in that way, because I felt isolated, because our training friends, our athlete friends, become our friends and our family, right? So it
Yeah.
definitely unintentionally isolated me from them, because I could no longer do what they were doing. Occasionally, I would maybe stop by the obstacle course gym and just do like my PT things when I was there. And And it was twofold, right? Part of it was it was really nice to be in the environment, and then part of it was like, I really wish I could climb that rope right now.
Yeah.
I still though, Julia, I'm planning on one of my goals is to maybe I won't race, but I want to climb a rope because I really love doing that. So I'll talk to my doctor about that. But yeah, it definitely affected my mental health. I think I found myself isolating. Definitely, my mood had some mood shifts also. So it was certainly a challenge. And so for me, one of the things that helped was okay, maybe I'm not going to see those people. Maybe I'm not reaching out as much, but if somebody reaches out, you better respond. So
Yes.
that was kind of a rule I set for myself. So one of my best friends, we talk often and we met through swimming. He's still swimming, I'm not, but we talk all the time. So remembering that these are still my friends, even though my body has shifted,
Yeah. I
I
mean, you
can still
spoke.
be excited for them. And even
Yeah.
if I
I mean, you spoke earlier, touched on it slightly about grief, and it was almost like you're
yeah,
grieving what you once had. And when you think of grief, you think of someone like it's almost like someone's passed away, and
yeah.
it's you don't associate grief with that in the same sense. So, what was that like? I mean, and how did you come through that emotion? I mean, we spoke obviously having the right people around you, people who are going to support you and be there for you is really important. We know that research says the importance of the social wellness, as it were, and having the right support network. But people who really understand what it is you're going through, because it's one thing, I guess, having medical professionals who understand and can help you through that physical process, but going
Yeah.
through that great grief, that emotional loss, if you like, as well.
Yeah. So what I found is that I think most people have heard of the 5 stages of grief, right? The Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief that was
Yeah.
originally created for people that have lost a loved one, right? Lost somebody to death. And so and I'm not going to get the reference right. It's in my book, but there's 7 stages of grief for someone with chronic illness because it doesn't end, right? There's, a new grief that comes with another setback or flare or something else that happens. And so what I did find is that while I was originally dismissive of my athlete friends I had a friend actually that just ruptured his ACL. Hopefully recovers well. But through my spine surgery, I would have my athlete friends say, I know what you're going through. When I had this rupture and I had this surgery, I felt the same way. And I would like thank them for their support and then kind of like roll my eyes, like, you don't understand what this is like. And then I fell during a Spartan race and
Oh,
broke my wrist in 4 places
oh
and
gosh.
had emergency surgery. And what I found through that recovery, I was like, this is going to be like easy, like 2 months. This is nothing like spine. No, it was a very long recovery. And then I realized that the emotions actually were so similar as far as the mood swings, the depression, the grief, the isolation. And so then it opened up my perspective. I'm like, oh, these athlete friends do understand what this is like. So it gave me the space to say to them how I was feeling instead of isolating. And so part of my process of the grief is, letting yourself feel the anger, letting yourself cry about it. I think we're kind of taught to hold it inside and do it with a
Um,
smile. You don't have to do that. You can just let yourself be. And, like I told you how I was feeling before we started talking. If somebody asks me how I'm feeling, I'm going to tell them. And I encourage you to do that, especially with your athlete friends, even if you're not
um,
involved in sport, because they likely have had a serious injury or been through something where they can actually relate. Even if it's a different experience, most people can relate to some type of
um,
shift in their body. They might not come out and say it, but most people can relate. So being able to share about that. And then of course there's therapy and working through your grief in therapy, a loss of sense of self. And once we lose our sense of self, we might feel like we lose purpose. And that's when we can, spiral into depression and other things. So
I mean, what do you
being able
think the
to
reason is people maybe have struggle initially with talking to people? Is it like they feel angry or they feel guilt or ashamed, or what is generally do you feel is going through someone who is going through a similar life change as you did, that they don't feel that they can talk even to, say, family members, because some find that difficult as well?
I think that actually probably all of the above. For me, my initial thought was, I don't know if it was necessarily guilt or shame. It just was mostly anger. But I think there's this identity that they have kind of like, people identify me with a number of different things. But with that, one of my
Mhm.
friends last year was like, but you can swim and you do all these things. I'm like, but no, I can't do all those things. So my identity is different. And so I think the feeling of I'm disappointing people because I'm not that person anymore. I'm a
Yeah.
person that did all those things. And I mean, I still have to unpack my medals since we moved here last August, by the way, but looking at them, I have good memories and I'm so grateful for every, start line I got to set my feet on, every training that I did. So I'm
Mm.
grateful for all those things. And there's definitely, I guess maybe shame would be a good word for that. The shame that like, I'm not that person anymore. I am that person in here. I'm still that person inside. I'm just
Right.
not able to go out and physically do that anymore.
I mean, do you think you've learned that through this whole process? I mean, you just touched on it there, you being, you're not that person because all of us, we're all more than just the thing we do, whether it's an athlete or whether it's a business person or a cook, a TV person, whatever it may be that you are and you're doing. There's always more to you than just one thing. And is that something that you've learned that actually, yes, I love my sport and I want to be active and be healthy and fit and all these sorts of things. I'm a competitive person, but there's also, have you learned that there's so much more to you? And have you been surprised by anything you've been able to do or achieve since that?
Yes, I think I wrote a book, but I'm saying that because I don't know that no, I would not have probably been able to find the time to dedicate to doing that. Because if you've written a book or anyone has, you know that now I say it's the sprint because the marathon really starts after your book comes out. And so I don't know that I would have had the bandwidth or even the time or maybe even the drive to do it because it takes a certain type of drive. And so now
Yeah.
I've been able to take that drive and channel it in another direction. And so while my body might not be able to do what it used to do, I can still channel that and support people in other ways.
Yeah. Could you when you kind of talk about, I want to get into sort of how you help people as well shortly,
Yeah.
once we get through your story. How do you let's get into that. How do you sort of help people who are going through this? What's your process when you think, okay, this is what I've gone through? How do you translate that into someone else coming to you for help as a therapist?
Yeah, I mean, because not everyone that's coming to me is an athlete or was an
Mm.
athlete, right? So, really, where are they coming from? And I'm going to use an example if that's okay. A client that I had worked with, who is somebody that was in her young 20s, had a genetic eye disease, and has lost her vision. So not 100% vision loss because most people don't, but significant enough to where it's really impacted her whole life. And so she had one plan for her life, and now that plan is different because she can't do the things that she used to do. Although she still bakes, which amazes me because I have, with contacts anyway, decent sight, and I'm not a baker. So, but how do that loss of sense of self and identity? Now I was this person and I had this whole life planned out ahead of me in my mind, and now it's completely different. And so I try to get a really good understanding of down to, like with her, like, what do you see when you look at me? Like, what is your internal world like? Like, I want to understand what that is like. As you're asking me those questions, like, is it shame? Is it guilt? Like, what are the feelings that are
Right.
going on? What story are you telling yourself? I like the kind of the narrative because a lot of times being able to change the narrative is a big shift. So I think for me, primarily working with clients is looking at the narrative, really kind of solution focused. That's why I like to say coaching, counseling, but really coaching because coaching is that solution focused therapy. Like, where are we? How are we feeling? And what do we need to get to where we want to go? And a lot of times we don't know where we want to go yet. So let's just
Yeah.
like point in a direction and move there together.
Because I think the key is like really, as I said, my audience is kind of sort of 40 plus. So it's these things can actually, if you're not dealing with them, can actually affect the rest of your life, the last half of your life, when really you want to be making the most of it in whatever way that may be for you. So if you found like with people as they're getting older that it becomes more of an issue if they haven't dealt with these problems.
Absolutely. I think we're in the same age range. I think in our age range, especially, it's kind of that we get into that existential thinking, like, what have I done with my life? What do I want the next however many years, hopefully many,
Yeah.
many years, however many years, what do I want that to look like? And so, yeah, if I haven't dealt with that, there might be an even greater depression because maybe I'm 51 and I don't know who I am right now, or I don't know what I want my life to look like. Or maybe I'm looking back and I'm feeling sad because I didn't do so many things I wanted to do, or I stayed in that relationship for too long, and so working through that regret because I think we all have some of them maybe. And giving
Mhm.
ourselves grace to move past them. And I'm saying that like it's easy. Sometimes it takes quite a long time to continue to process that, not only the loss, the grief, the regrets, but also who you are because of it. There's a quote that I keep saying that I heard on a podcast a while ago, and I just reheard in a book I was listening to yesterday about things happening for us, not to us, which a lot of people are like, I don't like how that sounds. And even, with where I am right now, whatever's happening is happening for me, because there's this amazing resilience that comes out of the end of whatever you're going through. It's just so hard to see it. And so I try to work with people to help, where is this taking you? Like there's this
Mm.
beautiful kind of picture at the end of the story. We just don't know what it is yet.
Well, I kind of think as well, going through these things, as traumatic as they are and as difficult as they are, is like you say, it sort of makes you stronger in the end. And it's once you've been through that and you think, actually, now I can actually think I can achieve whatever I want to achieve. And I think it's having that hope, having that willpower to just keep going, and having those people around you like yourself who can support you, guide you, teach you, that's going to make the difference. Because as well, as you're getting older, if you're dealing with any sort of disability or anything like that, the aging process as well, on top of that, which naturally takes you into sort of decline and the normal sort of aches and pains and problems that come along with that. On top of that, if you're not starting to take proactive action to help yourself, it's always taking ownership of it and deciding, do you know what? I want to have better second half of my life. I want to live well. And I still want to be as active as I can be, whatever that is. So I think that for me is also something to think about.
Absolutely. Can I share a little bit about what's happening
Oh,
right now?
100%. Yes,
Okay.
please.
So I'll share probably too much, but I think that people that are listening, especially in this age range, get it. So I believed that I was burnt out for about a year, and that's why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And I did have a hysterectomy almost 3 months ago.
Oh, right.
And
Okay.
then my body wasn't recovering, meaning that my scars healed. I think I healed from surgery, but my energy, my heart rate going from the bottom of the stairs to the top, it's not great. I got this great aura ring though now. And so now I can check my heart rate whenever I want
They're
to.
very popular now. I've seen a lot of people wearing those.
It's good information. It's probably too much information. I stress myself out, so I try not to look at it too much. Just trying to figure out what is going on with my body, because this isn't how my body feels. And so I've kind of been going down the rabbit hole of a lot of different doctors, a lot of different tests. And really, my goal is I want, less medications. I want to be healthy and strong. I want something
Hmm.
more holistic. And so, for me and for other people to continue to look for something until you find it. Like the doctor I was just talking to before I jumped on with you, it's a integrative medicine center. I went for acupuncture and for a vitamin C IV because my vitamin C is very low. And I walked in and I was like, this is a really beautiful healing space. I think I can get well here. And that's where we can trust our intuition. And so we just had a conversation. And so talking about, my goal is this kind of overall wellness, sure, let's figure out what's going on now, but I don't want to just fix what's happening now. I want to feel well for years to come, because I want to hike the mountain or take the vacation. And so I can't do that if I'm not investing in my overall wellness. And so that's not just physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's all of those things. So that's kind of
It-
where I am right now on my physical
yeah.
journey. I'm in a rocky patch, so to speak, right now.
But I mean, obviously, you have sort of a bit of an academic background, and you have obviously the medicine side of that comes into it. So, how important? I was just wondering, because obviously we're now. I find through conversations I'm having, more and more people are looking for more natural solutions to their
Yeah.
physical ailments or their problems and stuff. Do you think we go too quickly to just purely doing the pharmaceutical way? I mean, obviously that has its place, it's very important, but do you think there's not enough focus on more natural ways of healing yourself? And is that making sense?
It is making sense. And yeah, I do think so. That's why I tried acupuncture. That's why I tried Reiki. But I think I've tried all these other things first, even meditation. And I've finally gotten in the habit because there's an app that I really love. But even things like daily meditation, people have been saying that to me for years. But I'm like, That's fine. I'll do it, but like I have to do all these other things. Well, no, meditation and, breathing and all those things are just as much a part of it as taking a medication if you need it, as eating the right foods and things. And
Yeah.
by saying the right foods, I mean the right foods for your body, because all of our bodies need different types of foods. But yeah, I think that there's a big miss as far as looking outside of just the regular medical system. The regular traditional medicine, not to talk ill of it, but sometimes it points us in the wrong direction or seen as different body parts instead of a whole integrative body. And so
Yeah.
finding other types of things to help with our health
Mm.
overall that are going to lead us to long-term wellness, I think is really important to look at. Like, let's look at both instead of just one or the other. And so
Yeah.
that's
I
what
mean,
I'm trying to do right now, is do
yeah, I
both.
mean, I have had a lot of examples of that speaking just on the podcast with people who've gone through some sort of health trauma, something like that, and they've gone down the medical route and things haven't got that much better, or they've got better a little while, but they've never had a complete resolution to their issues. And they
Yeah.
went down to things, whether it's gut health or whatever it may be, and that's when the things change. And it's not just things like gut health, but mental stuff, mindset work. Some go, there's obviously controversy about homeopathy and things like that, but obviously we're all different and different things work for us. But in terms of things, I mean, if someone is like in real chronic pain, which obviously you must have experienced yourself along this
Yeah.
journey, I mean, that in itself, that fear of, I almost think about, well, if I do any more movement, am I going to make things worse? Am I going to damage myself? How do I get out of this pain? Because that is not just
Yeah.
affecting physically, mentally. And it can be, if you're not getting any resolution to that, you're not getting any help, then it's almost like you give up. And what we don't want to see people is give up and think there's nothing else out there. There's no hope.
Yeah, it's really easy to get into that space where you feel like there isn't hope, and, being in chronic pain and that fear of what if this is the time that's not going to get better. And I've certainly felt that way a number of times. And, one thing that has I hate to say always, but always one thing that has always helped me is physical therapy. Always, in physical therapy for, I was getting vestibular migraines, and it's working. And I call her a movement therapist because she's a coach, but she also has a PT background, and so it's a good mix of everything. And so movement is medicine. It might not be climbing the mountain, but it might just be getting on the floor and doing certain breathing activities, but just knowing that there is some type of movement that can help you get out of the pain that you're in.
Mm.
And the fear of movement is real, right? A lot of
Yeah.
people develop that fear of movement,
Yeah.
and not moving also can increase pain. I noticed that for myself, even after this surgery, being more sedentary definitely increased my pain. She always likes to join. And so, what is a safe movement for me to do right now? Right. So for me right now, a safe movement might just be, like I said, I went to the pool and walked in the water, or taking a slow walk. And so finding the safe movement that is there for you. And that's where a professional is going to come in. Again,
Oh,
whether it's a physical therapist or some type of movement therapist that can help
yeah.
direct you with that. But movement is medicine. They say that
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, you like to talk about redefining strength. So, for you, when you talk about redefining your strength that people can find inspiration from, how does that look for you? And what did you have to do to redefine that?
I'll let you know once I do. Redefining strength is really, I think for me, it was being open to any possibilities. So again, right now I'm in a space where I don't know what that's going to look like, but I didn't know that after a spine surgery, I would do obstacle course races. And again, looking back, I might have done some things different, but although everything was cleared by my doctor, for me, redefining strength, part of it was finding something that felt joyful. I liked the obstacle course races because you feel like a little kid, right? You're getting dirty, you're swinging on things, you're climbing in the mud. So it's something that is grounding and fun and brings me joy. That's where I define movement. So that could be, running a half marathon or doing a triathlon, or it can be, like I said, hiking and like picking leaves off of trees and things like that I like to do. So finding something that challenges your body in some way and also brings you some joy and peace. And sometimes movement is just neutral until you find out what that is for
Mm.
you.
And do you have do you find that you need a strict kind of in terms of your movement and your fitness side of things, your health, do you have like a strict plan or process, aggressive program that you follow and that you're working towards? Is there something in particular that you're working towards now?
Yeah. So right now and actually I'll see her tomorrow morning, my movement therapist. Right now I'm actually just working towards regaining strength. So, when you go through a challenging year and some injuries and surgeries, your body becomes deconditioned. And so, working really, really slowly. And I don't trust myself to move slowly, or then I will be afraid
Typical
and
athlete.
so following directions. So what I like about working with her is that she will can take a look at how I'm doing certain movements and then, give me direction on, like, there's one doing hip bridges, right? We know how to do those. Since my surgery, they've been really hard to do and then they cause pain. So I was like, I don't think my body's doing them the same. So I haven't done them. And so when I see her tomorrow, I'll have her take a look at them. I have a plan to slowly increase my strength in all parts of my body because mine is always going to be, my head to my toes. There's challenges also with having connective tissue disorder that brings on a whole other layer. So for me, for a long time, I followed a plan for a race. So I treat it the same way. I don't know if you use Strava, but I still use Strava and Training Peaks, and I log my
Mhm.
workouts just like I'm training for a race. That helps me. So good for me to kind of keep myself in that training mindset. So I'm following a plan with somebody that I trust.
Yeah.
And if my body doesn't like what's on the plan that day, then I will do what feels right for my body. But I like having that structure in place so that I know that I'm not doing too much.
Yeah, I was
And
thinking that
also,
that that is quite important because as well it gives you a focus, doesn't it? Because it's like if you know, right, I'm here and I want to get there, I want to get point B, then you can plan it out for each weekday if you like, if you want to be that structured each week. Maybe treat it, I always say you treat it like the seasons as a sport. You have your seasons for training. We'll think, well, when do I want this thing by? When do I want this fitness by or this achievement by? And then work your way around, what you need to do to be in your max training to get yourself fit enough to do that. And then, get yourself a recovery program in place, your season of recovery in preparation. Then, deciding, making a decision on what we need to do and being flexible and within that. So like you say, if you're not having a great day or something isn't right, you can then change it and have alternatives that you can do. And that's why planning a program, particularly in this instance, is really vital for keeping you on track. And you can then see yourself progressing as well, which psychologically is a really positive thing.
Absolutely. And I like that you said season of recovery. I do find that say a lot of athletes don't like that season of recovery. They feel like it's, I'm lazy or I should be training for something, but our bodies do need to recover. Even if it's not from an illness, if you've had an intense season with a lot of races. I used to do that. I would race every weekend if I could and to give my body a chance to recover. So that season of recovery is just as important as that training. And so I'm in a season of recovery for a long time. And so I'm going to keep recovering towards when I first met her name is Jessica. When I first met her, I was like, I want to get back to hiking and climbing the rock wall and doing these things. And now my first goal is because it's about to be spring, right? So is to be able to, get out and do some hiking. And so to work on, right, the hip strength and my core strength that needs to be rebuilt from my surgery so that I'm able to do those things and then go from
Mm.
there, that I don't have to pick everything, but to slowly build towards that goal because I'm in a recovery phase and it's going to take a
Yeah.
while. That's okay.
But you have that plan for the next
Yeah.
step and the next stage and what you're aiming for ultimately for the future, for your future.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
So people are obviously wondering because we've talked about this and we also know that you deal with eating disorders. They're probably thinking, well, why aren't they discussing eating disorders and body image and all these sorts of things? So is that something, how did you actually get into that side of things?
So I'm recovered from an eating disorder for many years. I use the word recovered. Some people use in recovery, whatever works for you. For me, recovered just means that it's something that was in my past. It's not something that impacts my daily life now, other than it being part of my works. It was through my own recovery journey that I decided to go back to grad school, and I worked in a really wonderful treatment facility in California. and got trained with some really amazing people. And so, and that's not everyone's journey, but a lot of people come to this field because of their own
Mm.
recovery. And so that's what brought me to working in this. And, I think the crossover with, I'd say, chronic illness, chronic injury, all those things that with disordered eating is if you have a chronic illness of some kind, you will have a complicated relationship with food. Whether or
Mm.
not it becomes disordered can stem from a lot of other things. So somebody might be an athlete because of their eating disorder. Sometimes there's an assumption that if someone's a runner, it must be because they're disordered. Well, no, a lot of runners just like to run. But sometimes somebody might run because they want to lose weight, right? So most runners out there know that you really have to nourish yourself well to be a runner.
Mm.
And so really being able to look at the intersection of, sport, mood, and food and see what's really going on in the big picture. But if you have a chronic illness, it does impact your body image, right? There's a direct link, most people don't talk about it, between your function and your body image. And it's not necessarily the same as being in an eating disorder and looking in the mirror and seeing a body that's a different size than you have.
Yeah.
It's the functionality appreciation scale. And so an athlete may go through this too, where if they're going through a phase where they're not, where they're injured and they're not active, where they might have more of a negative focus on their body because it's not feeling the way they hope it would.
Mm.
They're in pain, they're limited. And so illness and injury impacts all of that. And then you throw into the mix having a surgery, which impacts your digestion, impacts your nauseous, your stomach is upset. And so to prevent some of those things, having some things in place like a dietitian, physical therapist, having those therapist, regular mental health therapist, having all those pieces in place ahead of time. But there's definitely such a strong overlap between the
Yeah.
two. So always making sure we're asking the right questions.
Yeah, I guess it's really important because I mean, I guess not everyone who's going through something like this is going to have the ability to bring in lots of therapists and doctors and
Yeah.
support. So in that instance, what would you say somebody needs to do if they find, they're taking accountability and they want to say, look, I need to do something. They've come to that realization.
Yeah, I think if somebody doesn't have access to like resources as far as finding a dietitian or a therapist, there are a lot of free resources.
Mm.
There's a lot of really good free support groups that are available to access some resources. I mean, I'm always happy to direct people as far as finding those good resources that are free. There's some good online assessments. I think if you take them, though, you should probably do that with somebody that's a trusted friend. But
Mm.
usually, if you're wondering, like, there's something that doesn't feel right about this, maybe there's something wrong. You're usually right about that. And so, looking out to see where you can at least get some information and some resources.
Mm.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I agree. Therapy is expensive. Seeing a dietitian, if it's not covered by, thank goodness, I started seeing a dietitian because of my health, and I'm grateful that she's covered by my insurance, but not all of them are. And so there is a cost, right, associated with all of that. So finding the right help that's kind of within your means so it's sustainable is necessary.
So what's from your point of view and your background, what is the future in, research and whatever's coming out now for future for people who are struggling with things like scoliosis or some form of disability for them for getting sort of fitter and healthier and stronger and getting back in control of their life and feeling good about themselves and their future?
Well, that's a great question. So there are a couple of organizations. One is SOSORT. It's Society. I'm going to get it wrong. I'm so sorry to them,
That's
but
okay.
Society on Scoliosis. It's basically it's non-surgical treatment is what their focus is. And then there's also the Scoliosis Research Society. So the Scoliosis Research Society has their own mental health questionnaire, which I have had some phone calls as far as updating some of the questions that have to do with body image and mental health. At their conference last year, I did talk to a great number of physiotherapists. I think we're the only country in the US that call them physical therapists, but physiotherapists that really do think that the physiotherapist is more of a therapist. They spend the most time with you and can be really great support just around the language that they use with their patients. And so that can also be a really great mental health support and resource as well. And so there's some more research being done on the mental health aspects of scoliosis, and also just in some of the research that I have found, even just being diagnosed with an illness at a young age and how that impacts you developmentally. So we need to do a lot more research in that area. There really wasn't much research as far as the intersection of chronic illness and eating disorders, which is why I wrote what I wrote. So hopefully it's the conversation starter that will get us to have more research done, because there is such a huge impact. You mentioned that medical trauma. I think even if somebody doesn't have a medical trauma, like being injured by a medical provider, just being in the medical system with all the appointments and tests and surgeries and things, that in and of itself can be medical trauma. So we really need to be more
Yeah.
informed on what impact that has and what we can do about it.
Yeah, well, I guess when you find something like this out, you're already going into a little bit of fear mode, aren't you? You're going to be scared. You're going to be worried about the future and what this means for you. And then you want to go somewhere you feel people really understand and can really direct you well, and you can feel confident in that advice that you're being given. And if you're not getting that, then it's got to send you into a bit of a spiral, almost an emotional spiral, because you just don't, like you say, you feel alone and isolated. And I feel is that something that needs to be discussed, needs to be open, and people need, as you say, we need to get that, because it's not an uncommon thing to have scoliosis. So where is it? Where's the specialisms in that? Where are people who really be able to understand and direct people in terms of their health, their fitness, their whatever it is?
Yeah, I think there are some. I think through the two societies I just mentioned, and I can send you the specifics on them. But there's some really good providers that specialize in it. There are even some, that will bring some in from other countries to do surgeries if
Mm.
they need to. Those resources are good, but there are some groups available, not nearly enough. So I'm always happy to, like I said, to chat with somebody. There are a couple of books about. I will send you Alyssa's book. Also, I have it somewhere in here about the mental health impact of scoliosis. Kirby girls in the U.S. and also Higgy bears in the U.S. They make like stuffed animals that look like have your back brace on them, offer really great support for adolescents. And so there is a lot more support now than there was when I was a kid. And so we just need more of that support available. But on the Scoliosis Research Society's website, they do have a good listing of providers, just not a lot of mental health providers. So
Maybe they need
we're
to all get together and have some sort of people from, like you say, a more integrative approach, not just the physical, but
Yeah,
bring the
and
mental.
the SOSWORK conference was very international, which I appreciate. It's the first international conference that really felt international, people from all over the world. I've started just having a listing on my website of people that work with chronic illness and eating disorders, because we needed to have that resource that didn't
Mm.
exist yet. Yeah.
So for you, if people want to sort of find out a little bit more about you and get in touch with you, get some advice, get some help, maybe, what's the best way that they can find you?
The easiest way is to go to my website. It's just my name. It's TamieGangloff.com. They can email me or send me a message. I'm also on Instagram at author Tamie Gangloff, but they can just send me a message. I also have some free resources on my website. I have a medical pre-planning worksheet, so you can print it out and write out all your questions to get ready for your medical appointments, which is always a big stress for a lot of people. So I have a lot of other good resources listed as well.
Yeah. So to wrap up, I mean, if you were to sort of say your top 5 tips or bits of advice that you would give someone, what would they be?
Top 5 bits of
Mm.
advice for recovery or for life in
Yeah.
general. I guess it applies to everything. So I'd say, top 5 would be, reach out and don't isolate. I think it's a lot easier to reach out if you need help with tangible things, but we also need help with emotional things. Reaching out to, even if it's just 1 or 2 people, to make sure you have support. Working on, I call it your back to basics. People feel like if they go back to basics, they failed, but they're basics for a reason. Things like basic ways to ground yourself. It could be coloring. It could be, I got this great fidget at a conference a few weeks ago. Anything that's grounding. So reaching out, doing something grounding, journaling, having some type of support. It could be a coach, a physical therapist, mental health therapist, having that support, and some type of movement and nourishing your body. I think those are obviously 2 very important. We have to make sure we nourish our bodies with foods that we enjoy, and
Yeah.
also foods that are good for us. Yeah, I think that was 5, but I could probably add so many you more to that. And I guess just also, if you don't feel hope, have somebody in your life that can remind you of that. Cause sometimes, I might say, like, well, as long as you're hopeful for your future, well, maybe I can't even fathom what my future will be like right now. So then
Mm.
I could say, okay, but I know my friend Sharon can remind me of that. So I'm going to reach out to her today. So know that you don't have to hold all that yourself. That's what we have other people for, to allow them to hold some of that. And that in and of itself can be a big task too, that we can talk about another time, but allow somebody to hold that hope for you while you're going through that journey.
And just one last thing is, if someone is looking for the right physical therapist, if when they go to meet someone, what sort of things should they be asking to get a really good idea if this person is the right person to help them?
Yes, I think we want to ask a lot of questions about their experience and their background. So whatever your diagnosis is. So if it's somebody with scoliosis or somebody with Ehlers-Danlos, or when I had a tendon injury, what is your specialty in working with, athletes that run and then having this tendon injury, or with scoliosis, like what is your specific training in working with scoliosis? And how long have you been working on it? And really getting detailed, because just as we look to providers to help us, they can also harm us if it's not the right type of care.
True.
Ask a lot of questions, and then also don't leave until you have all of your questions answered. And a good provider will do that with you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, look, that was really good advice, Tammy. And I hope the future is much brighter for you.
I hope so too. I think it will be.
And it will be. It will be. Let's be positive.
It
It
will
will
be.
be. You've got the right
Yeah.
attitude. I wish you all the very best of luck with everything you're doing. I think you're doing amazing work. And as I said before, you're such an inspiration with everything you've come through. And you're still out there, you're still being positive, and you're still building yourself up and moving forward with your life. And I think that's something that we all need to take note of and learn from. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and giving us your tips, your advice, and letting us know what the future is, and helping people get the right people that are going to get behind them and back them and support them all the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for allowing me to be here with you today. I
It's an
appreciate it.
absolute pleasure. Well, thank you, Tammy, and thank you to everybody else for joining us. And we'll see you next time here on Unleash Your Inner Athlete. Thank you.